All right. Okay, let's get started. So I'll just continue letting people on. It sounds like there's a few that are having some issues. Got someone coming in right now. So I just wanted to say welcome and thank you for joining us for our second webinar. We're very excited to have two guest speakers today to talk about reopening and what to do in a safe and successful manner. And so this is really going to be focused on doing business post-COVID-19. And again, we want to be successful. We want to keep that curve flat. There's absolutely a lot of great momentum. You know, the governor just announced that we're moving into phase 1, which is really fantastic news. But we really want to be able to move into phase 2 and phase 3 after that, and to continue that success as we move forward and into the summer, and hopefully have a really great summer season for not only tourism, but also for our local small businesses and communities. So we have Sean Berger from the Twin Falls Area Chamber of Commerce and Craig Paul from the South Central Public Health District here today. These webinars will be recorded, so for those that aren't able to join us, sounds like there's maybe some issues with passwords and other things, but we'll also be able to share this out so that way you can rewatch it and get some more information. If you do have questions that come up, right now is a great time to hear about the general process of what to do in our individual stores, and then also have your questions answered. And so I think this is a great time to take advantage of those resources and really hear from some of our experts. And so to start us off, we have Craig Paul. He has been an environmental health professional for more than 15 years in both the private and public sectors. At the end of 2017, he was promoted to an environmental health and public health preparedness director at South Central Public Health District. And he was in place in control of all food protection, childcare, health and safety, solid waste, land development, and emergency preparedness activities conducted by the South Central Public Health District. He and his staff of 4 emergency preparedness professionals and 7 environmental health specialists provide services to Blaine, Camas, Kaja, Gooding, Jerome, Lincoln, Minidoka, and Twin Falls counties. So please join me in welcoming Craig to our call, and just let me bounce right over to unmute him. Craig, are you there with us?
I am. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yes, you're sounding good on our end, so go ahead. Thank you again for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know you guys are extremely busy with things going on over there, keeping us up to date on all these different protocols. So we're very excited to hear it from you and to kind of help the businesses understand what the next steps are. So
I'm happy to be here and happy to help in whatever way I can. I think the first step may be, and this will become clear in a little bit, but the first step may be to just review real quickly, what is COVID-19? Why do we care? Really quickly, it is a respiratory disease, so you get it through, it has to get into your nose or eyes or mouth. It is spread by droplets. It's not floating around in the air, it's just by droplets, which is why coughing and sneezing and even talking next to close to somebody is how it could spread. It will last on a surface for anywhere between hours to days, depending on what kind of surface it is. And if someone gets infected with it, it will generally show symptoms within 2 to 10 days after exposure. People will be sick for 1 to 6 weeks, 1% die. But the last little caveat on that is a significant portion of people show no symptoms at all, but they can still transmit the disease to others. And that's kind of the concern we have, is that a lot of people could be, and we don't actually know because we're still working on ramping up our testing capability. We don't actually know how many people have it and are walking around and don't know it, or have mild enough symptoms they haven't noticed. So with that background, how to reopen? There's a few resources online that are going to be extremely helpful to people. The first one is rebound.idaho.gov. And if you go to that website, and in fact, I guess, Melissa, it might be helpful, I don't know, would it be helpful if I go to this website and show everyone kind of around it? Would that be useful for people?
If you had the Zoom part of it, we could probably do that, but I can get to the website and kind of wander around it. Just hold on 1 second, screen share. Okay, so I'm on the stages of reopening. Is that where you're looking for?
That is perfect, yes.
Okay.
So this website is really where all the announcements are going to happen statewide. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll find a section that says staged opening protocols for all stages. And if you look at that, it's fairly simple in discussing what are the things that everybody needs to be looking at. And of course, number one is physical distancing of 6 feet, face covering, staying at home if you're sick, good hand hygiene. These are kind of the basic concepts that everybody should be looking at for the short term. And maybe for a longer term, because really these considerations are in place for as long as it takes us to find an effective treatment, a vaccine. At some point we will have those things, and then we can probably go back to completely normal. We can treat it like a flu or a cold or something else. But right now, while we don't have those, that's why we have to kind of be a little more careful. So this is where people are going to want to go for the most part for most businesses. If you can modify your business to meet these priorities, these protocols, you can probably reopen. Now that's for general. The governor's release yesterday of their stage 1 plan, which I believe, Melissa, if you scroll down a little further, you'll find that. Yeah, stage 1, May 1 to May 15. That's where you're going to find a lot of resources dealing with specifics. And you'll see on the right-hand side specific employers. So if you fall in one of these specific categories on the right-hand side, there's specific instructions for you. If you don't, then you're a general business, and what we just looked at just a second ago would be great. Now there's additional protocols. If you look at the top, right at the top of her screen, it says Stage 1 Business Protocol for Opening. That's a link that can be clicked on, and it will take you to additional guidance. Now, I don't like the way it's formatted, so we here at South Central Public Health District have tried to make it potentially a little easier for businesses to find. So Melissa, have you ever been to our website before? Can you go there now?
I have the link that you sent. Let's see. Well, I guess tell
Well,
me.
let's just show everybody how to get there so they can just go. So go to Google.
Okay.
That way nobody needs a link, they just can find it. And if you just type in South Central Public Health District, we will show up right there on top. And if you click on our website, the first thing that pops up is coronavirus. So if you click on coronavirus, because we all want to click on coronavirus, right? If you'll scroll down there, you'll find another big banner that says resources. And that right there, that banner right there, resources and guidance during COVID-19, if you click on that, that is where we are going to put every single guidance document we have, every guidance document the state puts out. It'll all be right here. So if you scroll on down, it's going to be by category. It's going to be to the best of our ability. On the top is going to be the guidance for specific people. Below that's going to be general stuff. Underneath that, we have things like signs you can use to remind people to stay 6 feet apart, or ideas on how you can clean your business, that sort of a thing. So there's lots of resources on this page for a lot of people. It should answer most of the questions. Now, of course, it won't answer all the questions, and we'll get to the contact information at the end. So, Melissa, if you'll scroll back up to the top, there's some specific guidance for specific businesses right now, right there. Sorry, it's hard to work with the delay on this. So you've got places of worship, you've got youth groups, childcare, restaurants, pools, all of those things. So if you know someone or you fall in one of those categories, click on there, and that's going to be what we've got for you right now. Let's see here. What should I talk about next? Next, there's going to be a lot of talk about disinfecting and sanitizing your business, your place of business. There are a lot of sanitizers that work for COVID-19. There's a lot of them out there that we don't know if they work for COVID-19 or not. So if you want to be completely sure, the US EPA has a list of all the products that you can use that they know will work against COVID-19. And that URL is about 15 billion characters long, so I get to it by doing a Google search for EPA COVID disinfection, and it comes up. Yep, right there. And then I actually pick the second one down, but that, no, you're fine, you're fine. If you click the first one, that right there, list in, and it's, you can get to it from directly from Google, or you can get to it from the page that she first went on. If you scroll down, there's where all the products are. Now, if you want to scroll through all 35 pages of it, go ahead. I don't want to do that personally, so what I would want to do if I were a business owner is to say, is the product I have going to work? So for that, there's a search function just above this table. You can actually search, and you can either put in the EPA registration number, or you can click on other search options, and you can actually search by product name. So if you have SanaWipes, you can type in SanaWipes and see if your product is on this list and if it's going to be useful for COVID or not. And on that table, it'll actually tell you how long you have to keep the surface wet for. So Melissa, just scroll down a little bit so we can see that table there. There, that contact time in minutes column. So say I was using the product atmosphere, which is that third one down. You don't need to worry about the disinfection preparations for following virus. You don't need to worry about that column. But on the right-hand side, it says contact time in minutes. That means if you're using atmosphere, which is quaternary ammonium as its active ingredient, you need to keep that surface wet for 10 minutes before it'll be effective against COVID-19. So if you've got 10 minutes to keep it wet, that'll be great. But maybe if atmosphere, if you have another product you might want to go for, you might want to see if something else might be down to a minute or less time than 10. A lot of people are experiencing shortages on where to get these things, and that's worldwide. Something I can recommend to you is, and something that's been useful for us here at the Health District, is search other businesses. For example, right at the beginning where things were getting shortages and we didn't have masks for what we needed to, we actually got some masks through a dentist supplier. Or you could check veterinary supplies for sanitization products. A lot of veterinary suppliers still have product and you can get it from there. Obviously, we don't want to keep the veterinarians without product, but the problem we have right now is that the distribution network isn't able to keep up with the demand, and it's catching up. But if you're having trouble getting a product, here's a list of, I think it's hundreds, if not 1,000 products that will work against COVID-19, and you can look around to see which one you can get your hands on. Finally, the other resource that's going to be useful for you is the CDC has a web page, which is, again, incredibly long, so I just type for CDC community, and it usually comes right up there, right up at the top. Excuse me. Try putting in COVID also. And then just search. And there you see right there, community, schools, and workplaces. Everything the CDC comes out with is going to be posted here. Now, again, their website is incredibly busy and complex, hard to navigate sometimes because there's so much information there. So if you're having trouble finding information, that's where you can, if you're getting frustrated with CDC, go back to our website, our South Central Public Health District website, and on those resources, we have links to specific CDC pages so you can skip all this navigation and go straight to what you're looking for. Now that's kind of a general overview of what we're dealing with. What you're dealing with, if you're wondering, what do I do about my business? Number one question is, can you open and keep your patrons and your employees 6 feet apart? Can you open and have disinfection, sanitization after people come through? Those are really your basic questions. And if the answer to those is yes, you're probably okay. If the answer is no, or you're not sure, that's where it maybe is time to reach out for help from either us at the Health District, or the City of Twin Falls and Twin Falls Chamber have some wonderful resources, which I think I'll let Sean kind of go into to help the average business owner navigate this whole thing. So Melissa, that's the end of my spiel. Do you want to open up for questions now? Do we go to Sean and then at the end? How do you want to do that?
Let's go to Sean next, and then we'll open it up to questions after that, and then we can, kind of regroup if there's anything else that needs to be covered. So I'm going to put you on mute and open up Sean. All right, so Sean, thank you for joining us. I have a quick intro from your side. So Sean Berger is the president and CEO of the Twin Falls Area Chamber of Commerce. It's a business organization of more than 810 members with a mission to enhance the economic vitality and quality of place through Southern Idaho. Since 2004, he's led the Twin Falls Chamber in its partnership with other organizations to drive business expansion, industrial recruitment, and community building. He began a third 4-year term on the Twin Falls City Council in January 2016 and has served as mayor of Twin Falls until this last term and is still leading the city with great bounds, and we appreciate you being here. So I will turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Melissa. So I want to publicly thank Craig for the work that he's done at Public Health. They've turned out to be a fantastic partner for us as a business organization and also for the city. So what we've been doing is we really have been using the governor's Rebound Idaho plan as kind of the template for when we need to be helping our individual businesses do what they need to do to reopen. So up to this time, it really has been about staying at home. That's been the driving force. With today's move to stage 1, the governor was actually in Twin Falls this morning. I had the opportunity to meet with him over at Rudy's at Cook's Paradise. So the governor wanted to come celebrate a small business, a retailer that has been able to reopen with the new guidelines. And it was great to see him here. It was helpful for me to actually go into Rudy's this morning and see sort of in practice the things that have been put in place. So when you walk in the door, there's hand sanitizer right there. Masks were encouraged, so we all wore masks while we were in there. The employees were masked. There's tape on the floor to separate people by 6 feet, and it's basically, a long line along the edge of the store, so it's not congregating people around the checkout there. Seeing those practices in place really gets to and I used this in a city press conference a little bit ago. I used the term common sense, and some people laugh at that. But at the end of the day, this really is common sense practices, not only for COVID, but really in all disease management. But the bottom line is to try to limit the person-to-person contact in your business. And so to Craig's point earlier, the governor notes that about 90% of Idaho businesses fall into compliance with stage 1, as long as they can meet those criteria. So we've been utilizing the rebound.idaho.gov site, and Public Health, again, has been great about putting out specific protocols and guidance for specific types of business. But really, just walking down Main Avenue today here in Twin Falls, there are a lot of businesses that have been closed to this point who are reopening or are able to migrate from that curbside delivery of their service that they were doing to now more of an interaction with their customers with that separation. So that's the resource that we're providing at the chamber, not only to our members, but also to the general business community. We also have that same kind of information available on the city's website, tfid.org. And again, that's applicable for a business, even those that aren't in Twin Falls. So I'm sure that some of the folks on this webinar are from throughout the Magic Valley. It's again, that general guidance of how do you ensure good sanitation practices, separation to protect your employees and your customers. And that's all available on the city's website too. And frankly, what we've offered from the chamber, and I know the city has as well, if you need just a one-on-one, let's walk through this with you, we're able to do that. We're happy to do that. Craig and his team are probably a little busy doing other things. I know that particularly with restaurants, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, in a minute as we look at stage 2, they're real busy. But we've educated ourselves. We've waded through these complex CDC websites to find the good resources. And we're happy to sort of handhold through that process one-on-one as we try to get everybody reopened. We had a meeting with Public Health, I guess it was a week ago now, and frankly, I was shocked. They have 1,400 restaurant and food service providers in the 8 counties of the Magic Valley. So you can imagine the complexity of trying to manage the reopening of all of those. And so as we look toward stage 2, which again, if the specific criteria are met, we're looking at middle of May, about the 16th of May. That is when restaurants can have developed a plan to maintain that distancing and sanitation practices, submitted that to public health to have on file. And then once we enter that stage under the governor's order, then you would be able to have dining available with restrictions. So it will look different than it looked 70 days ago. But really restaurants, I think, will be another significant push, again, depending on how those health criteria are met. So that's sort of how we've been working on helping businesses figure out if and when they can reopen and how they should do that. And then before we wrap up, I would like the chance to talk about what the governor announced yesterday, which are some grants that are available to businesses. But I can stop now if we want to have more discussion about the planning and the mechanics of reopening.
Okay. Yeah, so let's go ahead. If anyone has questions, just do the chat portion of it. I know there's a few people that are just by phone. So I may just unmute and see if we can have a good discussion. All right. Well, maybe you guys answered all the questions. Let's see. I know there was a question that Curtis had. Curtis, oh, do you want to talk about the continental breakfast and the buffet setup that you guys were thinking about opening up and what that was going to look like? Curtis,
can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I was having audio problems earlier. Yeah, so the main question is how, all hotels, most of the hotels here in the Magic Valley are limited service, so they all are buffet styles. What does that look like when do we think we're going to return? Is that once we get past stage 4, or is it just, timing for the immediate future when, that's not going to be allowed? Is it going to be like plated service going to be more required if we want people to have a breakfast down in our lobby area, following the guidelines? Or, so really when are they looking at buffets possibly coming back open? And, before my question was too, is how do you get it applied and get the application and stuff done? But I've actually received notification and stuff. Melissa sent it out, the application to fill out to reopen and things for the health department. So that's been answered. It's just really when it comes down to when do you see more buffets, because that's really what most hotels offer right now.
So buffets, and I guess I'm gonna walk back to the intent behind this is to reduce large numbers of people. So if there is some way for you to make sure that there is no groups larger than 10 at any point that aren't part of the same family, and you can sanitize, that's really the concern with the buffet, is large groups of people come together. And really it is not going to be, at least until stage 4, for a large buffet place like Golden Corral or something. I mean, really, unless they can come up with something creative, I'm not sure how they could. For your hotels, yes, buffets, that's what you're looking at. You just came up with a good idea, though. If the hotel can somehow shift slightly to, and again, I don't know if you can hire somebody to do this, but if somebody can say, hey, I want this, 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 and they can put it on a plate and minimize the interaction between guests, and again, this is an additional expense, deliver it to their room, perhaps even better. That would be a way to open up breakfast service before and kind of not get around, but avoid the buffet prohibition, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
All right, so Gary War has a few questions. I'm not finding him on my list. Gary, are you unmuted?
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good then.
Okay, just a couple of questions. Obviously, So I run the recreation district here in Jerome, and we realized that we're not going to be able to open our recreation center until phase 2. And obviously at phase 2, you just kind of mentioned groups of 10. I have a 32,000 square foot recreation center. Do I have to count employees towards that 10? You know, I'm in a separate office, separate part of the facility, but I'm in the same facility. We have 2 levels to the facility. You know, I guess how hard and fast do we stick to the 10, or can we have appropriate spacing in different parts of the facility, i.e. a fitness class, say gymnasium, and our fitness equipment is upstairs. I guess for gyms and fitness facilities, how does that work? And then my second question is for public pools. Obviously, I've read through the information that was released on public pools. Just wondering how we social distance in public pools. What's the standard there?
You have excellent questions. So the gathering of less than 10 people does not necessarily mean in a facility. It means a gathering of less than 10 people in an immediate area. So your facility is really large. If you can arrange ways to have 10 people on that corner and that 10 people over in that room and 10 people over in this room, and you know, and they're not going to overlap in the locker room, and you can manage the flow of people to keep those sizes small, then you have met the requirements of those of the stage 2, and you could certainly open if you can make that happen. Same thing with the pool, and how to do that. I really don't know how you would possibly get people to not socialize in a pool. I mean, that's kind of the fun part about it. There are some pools I have heard through the grapevine, so that this is hearsay at this point, that have decided to open up for lap only, and they're just going to say you can show up, but if we already have 8 people in there, then you'll have to wait till one of them comes out and then you can go in type idea, because they had to, lifeguard, one for a lifeguard type idea. So that might be a possibility. As for pools, it gets a little tricky. They aren't specifically mentioned anywhere. So again, if you can feel like you can meet those protocols that Melissa showed, the generic protocols for all stages, you can do it, then I'd say go for it. If you can't, then you may need to wait until, say, stage 3, where it's groups of 50, or stage 4, where you can get bigger groups. I know that's not really a definite answer, but that's the best I can give you at this point.
Sure, and I understand that, and it's going to be an evolving situation. And really, our pool, we're not looking until stage 3 or 4. And I guess some of the complicated things about pools, particularly a public pool where you have things like swimming lessons or even staff training, everything you do with training your staff. I understand we can do CPR, hands-free CPR, or no contact CPR training, things like that. But everything you do with lifeguard training is in a bubble, inside of a 6-foot bubble. Same thing with swimming lessons, things like that. And so obviously we all feel the pressure from the public to, want to get back to normal. But we're just trying to figure out, is it even possible? And also the economics of that. Can you generate enough income off of a lap swim schedule to justify opening a public pool, given the great expense to it? So those are just some of the complicated issues. I expect you to have answers to all of those. They're not easy to overcome, but I guess those are just some of the things I wanted to point out.
Hey, Melissa, this is Sean. I have a follow-up question on that, if I may.
Yeah.
So with stage 2, we've seen specific guidance released for restaurants that now is able to have sort of a strategy behind it. We're anticipating that for salons as well, coming from the governor's office and also from the Board of Cosmetology. So Craig, this is a question for you. Do we anticipate there will be specific guidance for indoor gyms as we approach stage 2, similar to what we had for places of worship and daycares and youth activities in stage 1?
I haven't seen anything for them, but I would be surprised if they don't.
Yeah, it seems that the specific employers that are called out in each of the stages, there tends to be some specific guidance to them that's modified or above and beyond the general business protocols. And so if that's the anticipation, I would think that very soon, now that we've entered stage 1, we would see further guidance for indoor gyms and salons, and then in future stages, see that guidance come for those prior to entering those stages.
I think that is a safe bet. I will add this to my list of notes that I'm taking here, and I will contact the Idaho Health and Welfare Environmental Health Division and ask them if they're aware if anyone is making guidance for gyms and recreation facilities, and if no one is, maybe they could.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, we've had a few new people join the call. Right now, we are just asking questions, and this will be recorded, so you'll be able to watch the presentations. Sean has a few more points, and I'm sure we'll do some wrap up too, but I'm going to unmute everyone again because some people are just on the phone call. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them as you can.
Melissa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
And will one of you guys address what you see as far as the event center coming up this summer? When can we have a real convention back in the event center? When can we have a 300-person wedding? I'm assuming after stage 4, that's the first time we can really do that type of thing, but will that be unlimited at that time, or is there still going to be restrictions? Or just talk about that a little, Sean, or whoever wants to, okay?
Yeah, so I'm happy to jump in from what I'm seeing in the guidance. So we've been following that closely as far as the chamber as well, because events are a significant portion of the activity that we do. It's also a revenue stream for us. So when we start thinking about what does a business after hours look like, and when can we do that gets 250 to 350 people there. My understanding is, so you're dealing with a gathering of more than 50 people. So that's a stage 4 and thereafter activity. And large venues, so they pointed out movie theaters or sporting venues, but I would think that would be similar to a convention space like you have at Canyon Crest, that they are a potential stage 4 opening with physical distancing protocols. So again, I think as we move to those further stages, taking some of the things we've learned in earlier ones, so for example, a stage 2 reopening of a restaurant dining room that's going to have specific protocols is something that would likely then need to be applied to a fundraising dinner in a convention space. 10-foot spacing of tables, limiting those numbers of people. But it's definitely a down the road in this in these stages. So that puts you at mid to late June. I will tell you from the city's perspective, we are not looking to approve any special event activities like a Western Days, for example, until after the end of June. And Craig, I'm sure, can add to that or correct me if I just misspoke for all that time.
No, you hit it right on the head, and I think that's maybe one thing I should point out. It may be more accurate to say we're dealing with business reopening in a COVID-19 world rather than after COVID-19. We are still continuing to get new cases, and we don't know what's going to happen as things continue to open up. It is possible, though obviously we're all hoping, especially over here, we're hoping this doesn't happen, but it's possible we will see an increase in cases, which may even push this timetable out further. And until we have viable treatments and enough treatment for COVID patients, this may continue on past June 26th. So everything you said was correct, Sean. I would just add just a little caution of, at this point, I don't think we can guarantee that even on June 27th, everything is going to be open and we can just go back to normal. we also don't know for sure that next fall, we won't see a resurgence of this and have to do, hopefully not as drastic, but something again in the fall. Right now, we just do not know. We just don't have enough information yet.
So I have another question from the chat. On the same note as the hotel buffet, it does mention that restaurant dining area reopening plan under social distancing, that buffet areas will remain closed. Does this mean we cannot open our buffet until stage 3?
Yes, that is the intent, because again, buffets have a tendency to attract people, get them in close proximity, which is something we know is dangerous. Also, even buffet lines with shields, people still stick their hands in there, and you can transmit it from hand to that spoon to the next person who picks up the spoon, and now it's on their hand. And so yes, I'm not going to say a blanket no, because the idea is, can you do this and maintain social distancing and sanitization? And I'm not going to put a blanket, because everybody's resources and buffets are a little different. So it's possible somebody would have a buffet set up that they could make something work where other people couldn't. So, and again, I'm going to reiterate, you have to submit your plan to us, but we are not going to come out. We're not going to check your plan. We don't have the resources to do so, nor have we been granted the authority to do so. So it really comes down to you as a business owner have to do your best. And again, we are happy, especially for restaurants. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to your local inspector or any of the health district offices, and we will try to help you as best we can with specific questions, either right now or in the weeks to come.
Melissa, I have a question.
Yeah.
This is Kathy over at Yellow Brick. Hey, I had to join a little bit late, and I'm not sure if you already went over this, so I apologize if you did. What is that timeline? How far in advance do restaurants need to submit their plan before they can reopen?
All they have to do is submit the plan. They don't need to have our approval. We won't go getting back to them and saying thank you. It's just, as soon as you've submitted, you can open as soon as stage 2 hits.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then I have another question. As far as, I looked over kind of the parameters for restaurants, and it did include social distancing for employees. Are there any recommendations, ideas on how to do that for restaurants? I mean, a lot of us, especially in like a downtown area where we're in very small locations, it's extremely hard to imagine that. So I don't know if, having the tape on the floor like you do for customers, if that's something that we should be implementing in our plan for our employees, or, what you guys are recommending for that.
Yes, a lot of restaurants do not have anywhere near enough kitchen space to do 6 feet of separation between employees. I mean, that just, no building was designed with that in mind, and especially not a restaurant kitchen. So in those plans, these are recommendations. These are things you can put into place. And if some of these recommendations, and I assume you've seen the one on our website, which is a checklist.
Yes.
There's a reason it says to check all of the plans that you planned, all of the measures you plan to implement. If something isn't going to work for you, don't check that box. Now, in terms of recommendations for those restaurants that are small and can't get social distancing, there I would recommend you do as much as possible to keep people from crossing paths as many times as possible. If you don't already have, okay, your job today is going to be pretty much dishes, and you're going to kind of stick in your dishwashing area. Your job today is the cooktop, and you're going to stay in your cooktop area. Your job today is prep area, and you're going to stay in your prep area, and minimize the amount of cross flow. Does that make sense? Times when employees pass each other. The other thing we can recommend, and something we've taken to here at the Health District, is simple cloth masks really can be effective, especially those instances where you just can't keep your 6 feet of separation.
Right.
And really, it's going to be do the best you can. I guess I also want to let people know that the intention behind this, there is no way we're going to stop COVID. All we're trying to do is slow it down, because it's here, it's going to happen. by a decade from now, I'll guess everybody in the world will have had COVID at some point. We're just trying to slow it down. And so don't worry about no contact, just try to minimize the contact.
Okay. And then Sean, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You know, with those of us who are going to try and open our doors as soon as we can, what are we looking at as far as, you know, like some of us really rely on having those events, right? If we are able to host, let's say, a live music night, and we are able to still enforce that social distancing, having our tables separated, is that something that would be kosher, or are we just trying to avoid that until we get the go ahead?
So I would say, so for example, I've been to your place for drag bingo night. Probably a little too crowded.
Exactly.
But every other table with people playing bingo, probably appropriate. If again, it can meet the guidelines that you're able to put in place for stage 2.
Okay.
What the special events I'm talking about is close off the street and have a Western Days parade, or close off Main Avenue and do, an Oktoberfest type thing.
Right.
I use Oktoberfest not because I'm saying October, but that kind of an event.
Yeah.
At this time, I think until we get to stage 4 and have a good understanding of what does social distancing look like when you have a group of more than 50 people, we're going to have some better idea of that by then.
Okay.
So we're not saying we're never going to do events again, but right now, certainly not until stage 4. I'll tell you, like from a chamber perspective, so our business after hours in June is the one that First Federal hosts, which is typically 300 or 400 people. We're thinking about, because that event has now gone to helping to support their local restaurateurs, so they'll have 10 different food things. We're starting to think about plans of what could that look like if it weren't all in one parking lot. What if it were at City Park and you have 2 food trucks in each corner of the park, and you're encouraging people to spread out and keep that separation. Still a little bit to be determined, but I think in your venue, whatever activities you're going to do, whether that's having live music or whatever, if you can still meet those protocols, I think you're in good shape.
Okay. And last question, I promise. On that same note, I've briefly been emailing with Nate Murray about this, but regarding the farmers market, the downtown farmers market. And
yes,
like I've been in contact with Denise Dixon, who's the president of the Idaho Farmers Market Association, and she's given me some ideas. I just didn't really know what we were looking at here. She's giving me some ideas on only allowing 30 people at a time into the market, obviously having the booths spaced out, but I don't know how kosher that is, and what phase that would fall under, because, if we did limit the amount of number, the number of people in there, we could make it work.
So, and Craig may want to weigh in here too. So I don't see farmers markets specifically called out as a specific type of employer activity per se. I do think that the gathering numbers guidance may drive some of that, but that's a good question. I do know I've received a lot of stuff from Washington State on how they're adapting their markets. And I just saw a story on the news last week about Boise's farmers market, which again, I understand is a little different scope and scale than what the downtown one is.
Right.
But I will reach out to the governor's office or health and welfare and see if they anticipate any guidance on that. And Craig, I don't know if you have anything further on it.
So I do a little bit. Farmers markets are specifically allowed as a food source of food. So those can open, but we are still recommending the same 6-foot separation, just like we're recommending to a grocery store, that they put in protocols in place to keep people separated, whatever that looks like for your venue. But yeah, farmers markets are not prohibited. They can start, it's still cold a little bit, but they could start right now.
Okay.
I would add the caveat to that though, Kathy, that because that is an event that requires city approval as a special event, sort of separate of the health protocols, I will also follow up internally at the city to see what we're thinking about those. Because that's something that would have to be approved as a
Okay.
special event, right?
Yeah, I had already gone through Parks and Rec, and then my next step was to go through,
Yeah, to the city.
yeah.
Yeah, so
And so Nate was saying that he had talked to Travis about it, and that they had some ideas. So
okay,
I can.
I'll follow up with them. I'm
Okay.
actually sitting just down the hall from Travis's office right at this moment, so I'll catch him before I leave.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, I have another question from chat. Janie from the Y, I also came late to the call. Will indoor gyms be required to submit a plan, or is that just for restaurants?
This is Craig from the Health District. As far as I know, they will not be required to submit a plan, but I haven't seen anything even draft or talk about that yet. I will be reaching out to Idaho Department of Health and Welfare's Environmental Health Division to see if they know if something is being developed. My personal vote would be, I don't think you guys need to submit a plan to us. I think you are intelligent enough you can figure out your own, but I guess that probably won't be my decision to make. So that's my 2 cents, and I may have already said too much.
I would add to the guidance I've received from the governor's office and talking to them is that if a specific industry has some regulatory body over it, like public health with restaurants, like Board of Cosmetology with salons, that there may be plan requirements, but likely not inspections per se of those. And I don't know of an agency that oversees gyms. So I would think there may be guidance on what to do potentially, but not a approval plan submittal and review process.
All right, are there any other questions out there? My participant manager doesn't let me see everybody, so if you do, go ahead and talk now. Questions for now, I'm sure we'll get some follow-up later on. But Sean, you had something you wanted to kind of talk about.
Yep, I just want to touch quickly on the last item, which, so in the governor's press conference yesterday, hold on, I'm shuffling from the papers here. So in the governor's press conference yesterday, in addition to announcing that the state would move to stage 1, he also announced a plan to distribute $300 million in cash grants to small businesses. He visited a little bit about it this morning when I saw him. So this is part of the Federal CARES Act money that came directly to the state. So that's $1.25 billion. Idaho is the first and only state at this time that has earmarked a piece of that money to go directly to small business owners. So the intent of it is to help businesses who've had to close, lay off staff, have limited revenue, similar to the federal Paycheck Protection Program and the SBA loans that have some potential forgivable grant portion. But this will be specific to Idaho businesses. They're up to $10,000 individual grants. And again, it's grants, so I mean, it's free money. So the intent is that if you're interested in applying for that, you had to have not received more than $10,000 from the PPP or the SBA program. So this is intended to help those who weren't able to get a piece of that federal money initially. And there's a process for that you need to have your TAP account, Taxpayer Access Point account with the State Tax Commission, which you likely do if you're withholding taxes and such for your employees. That's the first thing. So if you don't have a TAP account, go get one online now. This also, by the way, is on the rebound.idaho.gov website. And then the next step will be by next Tuesday, the state will release a full list of criteria of who's going to qualify for these grants. And then the applications will go live on May 11th. So there's a little bit of time on this. The intent is to have clear guidelines laid out on the front end, which is exactly the opposite of what the federal program was. That was apply for it, and then we'll let you know if we change the rules. So again, I think kudos to the state for some attempts to get those dollars into the hands of local businesses to help subside the impacts to a certain extent. So if anybody wants more information on that, again, it's on the rebound.idaho.gov website, or feel free to get in touch with me at the chamber, and we're happy to help walk through that.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome program. So, oh, okay, we're good. I just saw another chat come in. So I think that's about it for today. I know that there's going to be other questions that come in later on. So again, this will be recorded. If you rewatch it and think of something else you want to ask, just go ahead and reach out to any of us. I'll make sure that everyone's contact information is shared with the group. And then I hope you all have a great rest of your Friday. It's going to be a great weekend. We're all moving into phase 1, so we're very excited about this. And hopefully we can all do business safely and successfully. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Craig,
Thanks,
by the
Melissa.
way.